Greetings and salutations, my fellow Tekken players. Today, Season 4 has finally arrived, and the first thing I'd like to do is look into Lars' most recent changes. The Tekken team has made some fascinating changes indeed, and it's like they've been listening to some of my advice because they've made one of the most critical changes to one of Lars' most important moves, but I'll get into that a little bit later. Let's start from the top and break down every single one of Lars' new changes and additions. Let's begin. At the top of the list, we have Lars' new Rage Drive. It comes from Dynamic Entry, so now he has two Rage Drives, one from Silent Entry and one from Dynamic Entry. Lars is now one of the few characters that has access to a low Rage Drive, and it is quite interesting. It seems to be one where you can just straight up get 50 damage from the Rage Drive and a shoulder, or you can use it as a combo extender and get some extra damage with the shoulder and the extended grounded effect that most Rage Drives of this nature have. So you can get some extra damage at the end of a combo, or you could use it as a mix-up. A multi-purpose tool is always welcome. It's minus 13 on block, so most likely you may die if you don't have like maximum health on your rage. But it's possible you may survive. Some characters don't have very powerful 13 frame punishers. So it's not bad. It's not bad. A very, very welcome addition to Lars' arsenal, and will be used and utilized often, without question. Thank you, Damco. Thank you, Bandai. Thank you, Bandai Namco. Appreciate it. Appreciate this move greatly. The next move that they changed is one move I had on one of my lists called Lars' most useless moves. And they seem to change three down. And instead of +5, it's +7. And with +7, Lars' fully crouched 1+2 can no longer be interrupted by most things aside from a down jab. So if you connect 3 down, you can do full crouched 1+2 without really any worry of interruption unless they possibly like jump kick you. So it's a pretty good addition, which will let you threaten with maybe a fully crouched down forward 2. But ultimately, the move is linear, so there's really no reason for not to use maybe a back 4 instead, which is more damage and also linear. But I mean, the move reaches from range 2.5 and it comes out at 15 frames, so maybe just for the sake of some, just to throw out something to throw off your opponent. Maybe they'll try to punish with something inappropriate and you'll get a free punisher. Just maybe you can use this move to take advantage of enemy lack of knowledge of the character, because this move is weird, but if it connects, it's like you get to do kind of like whatever you want. +7 is a ridiculously high amount, so I'm not quite sure if this is going to be a move that's going to be utilized often, but it seems to have a few more things you can play around with it. I think it still needs more work, but I think it's going in the right direction with this move. Maybe make it a tracking move, a high tracking move, or maybe give it a faster startup frame, because at 15 frames you can still sidestep it at both sides, even at like +6. Like there's no, it has a weird spot. I'm not really sure about this move, but interesting changes nonetheless. Here comes another move where they focus on Lars' legs. They've been really focusing on Lars' legs these last few patches, or at least this patch in particular. Anyway, Lars' silent dynamic entry 3 is now +6 and leaves the opponent very, very close to you. So you have a little bit more incentive to use this move, especially if your opponent isn't really heavy on the sidestep, or you like kind of train them not to sidestep too heavily. It's a fairly impressive move. +6 and your opponent is super close to you. You could do back 1 for the wall splat, or a guaranteed uninterruptible hit, or you could mess around with back 2-1. Now it pretty much trades with a 10 frame jab, and you have that extension 2-1 for the combo. So you can really just mess around with a few more moves since it leaves the enemy so close now. And of course, the move itself is a wall bounce, so it's a +6 on block wall bounce. Pretty crazy. But of course, it's a little bit slow and it's also linear. So usually, the times when I like to use this attack is when I have trained the opponent to immediately get up on wake up, because I keep hitting them with a dynamic entry 2. So when I know they're gonna get up and I don't want to risk going for a low, I go for the dynamic entry 3. Or, I've mentioned before in one of my previous videos, underrated Lars moves, down forward 3-3 leaves quite a bit of distance, and many characters in the cast have a difficult time punishing it. So you can kind of use this move liberally depending on the character you're facing. And when you do that, you can mix it up with dynamic entry. So you can do down forward 3, dynamic entry 3, down forward 3, dynamic entry 1. Or now you have access to your rage drive. So this move is good. And I've just given you a few ways of how to utilize it. Wake ups and mix ups. But sometimes, if your opponent isn't too sharp with the side steps, you can just dash in and throw it out. Especially since dynamic entry 1 tracks so well, if you threaten with it enough, sometimes just go in and throw out dynamic entry 3. It's not bad, especially near the wall. It's a wall bounce. That's also +6 now. Crazy. Very powerful move. Next up, we have 3 silent entry changes / additions. First, silent entry down forward 1 leads to a bounce counter hit animation effect thing. So basically now you get a counter hit combo on counter hit down forward 1 in silent entry. I get this move to hit on counter hit on Oki situations fairly frequently, so I'm glad that now it's gonna give me a full counter hit combo. Very good news. And a welcome change, because it literally has no negative ramifications due to the buff. Just buffs, no nerfs. The next buff is silent entry 2 is now +6 instead of +5. So at +6, and you're left at a while standing state, this allows you to do full crouch 1+2 without being interrupted by a down forward 1. Because at +6, full crouch 1+2 comes out at 18 frames. So the only thing that can really stop you is a low jab, a jump kick, or a 12 frame mid, which is kind of on the rarer side and most of the time not that punishing. Most of the time. Be careful around Leroy, because if you trade with his 12 frame mid, you're getting launched. Also, silent entry 2 is now -12, which means it really can no longer get launched by anyone. So this is a very, very safe low from Lars with immense reward. Considering it comes out from a stance and isn't necessarily the easiest to connect on a lucid opponent, I like the fact that it's so safe. Lars deserves it, considering every other blow is still pretty much launch punishable. And the last addition is silent entry now has a new combo tool, silent entry 3+4. Now you're going to be able to do some longer reaching wall carry combos they're actually fairly similar to the combos you could do in Tekken 6 and Tekken Tag 2. Well, mostly Tekken Tag 2, because Lars used to have a bound move in Tekken Tag 2 off of his silent entry that led to further combo extensions. But since there's no more bound in this game, he had no more way to extend his combos from silent entry, but now he can. And Lars' already immense wall carry is even further improved. This move is also gives you a ballerina spin on hit, and it's only -6 on block. So you're pretty much always better off going with maybe a silent entry down forward 1 if you're looking for something safe for a silent entry Oki option. But the thing about this move is it has a little bit more tracking, and sometimes silent entry down forward 1 whiffs if the opponent like side rolls in a certain direction and then gets up. Silent entry down forward 1 will whiff. But this move seems to have some tracking to the weak side of silent entry, so I'm gonna need to do a little bit more experimenting with it. But it seems like silent entry 3+4 is a safe wall splat option from silent entry. So safe wall splat option as well as a combo extender. Useful tool and a welcome addition. And it looks freaking sick. With this next change, they seem to have attempted to make a seemingly useless combo only tool into an actual move you can use in neutral now. Forward 1, 2, 3 honestly kind of works similarly to 2, 1, 4. Excuse me, 2, 1, 3. They're both high, mid strings that end at -12. And the last hit is a full combo on counter. So seemingly these moves are identical. Like there's no point, they pretty much do the exact same thing, except that forward 1, 2 is 13 frames instead of 10. So why would you use a 13 frame version of a move when you could just use the 10 frame version of a move? Well, forward 1, 2 has the option to go into silent entry. And now that forward 2, 3 leads to a very chunky combo on counter hit, there is more incentive for you to go for mix-ups with just the first 2 hits. And unlike 2, 1, you have options to go into your silent entry options. And with silent entry 2 being a safe low, and then you have silent entry down forward 1, which is a safe counter hit 0 mid, and then you have silent entry 1, which is a wall splatting only -10 mid. I mean, you have some very, very powerful options from silent entry. And now the fact that they amplified the last hit allows you to use the mix-ups from forward 1, 2 a little bit more often. It's kind of pushing you to use silent entry from your, just maybe like dare the enemy to press a button. It's basically a new mix-up. And now that you have basically like 4, basically silent entry has been completely revamped through the entirety of Tekken 7. Now you have a power crush from silent entry, you have a fairly safe low from silent entry, a safe counter hit mid from silent entry, you have a wall splat from silent entry, a wall bounce, excuse me. Silent entry has been like revolutionized in Tekken 7. Like it's become a completely different stance. And now it seems that they're trying to add more ways for you to properly threaten with that stance. And that is what this change is for. Almost every Lars string is like deadly now. Back 2, 1, counter hit. 1, 2, forward 1, 2, 3, counter hit. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 1. Ah shit, 2, 3. Okay, now almost every Lars string is deadly. 2, 1, 3, counter hit. Forward 1, 2, 3, counter hit. While rising 2, 1, counter hit. Back 2, 1, counter hit. None of these things did nothing in the past. Now Lars actually has a somewhat threatening counter hit. You can't just randomly press on him and just expect to get a knockback. You're gonna get counter hit by Lars now. Fear him. Fear his strings. Fear the Alexanderson. The next change on the list is a damage buff to 4-2-1. And this is a pretty good poke because it tracks to Lars's weak side, which is the right. People love to step Lars to the right. So when you do maybe like a forward 4-3, and the opponent is either going to try to interrupt you, or maybe they're going to try to step. 4-2-1, since it comes out at 12 frames, beats anything that's not a low high crush, and it also tracks to the right. So keep this move in mind, and you can also mess around with silent entry transitions with it on occasion. The next change is down forward 2-3 is mid. I guess this might be a good change overall. I mean, some people didn't duck it the second hit, but that's probably more inexperienced players. Overall, it's not as launchable as it used to be, but it's probably a little bit easier to punish since you don't actually have to react to the mid anymore. So it's an interesting change to the move, but it's neither good or bad. I think it's average. Next we have down back 1-3 down with the transition, giving +1 on hit. This is definitely a welcome change. Now you can sort of pressure with the while standing 4, sort of. I mean, it would be better if it was maybe +2, but because it's still pretty much launch punishable if they block the first hit and then just crouch on the second. So it's only being +1 while still being launch punishable is but I guess it's better than nothing. It's better than being -1. So as a large player, we take what we can get. That's also -10 on block, but you're supposed to crouch the second hit anyway, so whatever. Down back 4, the sweep has a slight damage increase from 17 to 19, and it also leaves the opponent a little bit closer on the counter hit, allowing you to do more consistent combos. A welcome change. Also on the same limb, back 4 now does more points of damage. It does 55 without rage and 60 with rage on counter hit, and that's a pretty healthy damage increase, I would say. You know, the health right now is about 175. So hypothetically speaking, you're in rage, you get what, 3 back 4s on counter hit, 60, 120, 180. The opponent is dead. You know, generally you want 2 to 3 combos to kill an opponent, so it takes 3 counter hit raged back 4s to kill an opponent. So that's pretty good. Even just 2 is like, you know, way more than half health. So it does a pretty healthy chunk of damage. It's respectable. So, you know, it's not as crazy as the counter hit down forward 2 we used to have. It doesn't have the same tracking that move had, but the damage buff is definitely welcome and something that most large players wanted, requested, and I think it's well deserved for this move. So thank you, Namco, Bandai, Tet Cops, whatever you got. Yeah. Forward 1 + 2 is now -9 instead of -11. So now at the wall, it can no longer be punished. This is a great quality of life, you know, change. Because honestly, it didn't really need to be -11. You know, there is no point for that. But now that it's -11 and it also wall splats, it kind of makes forward 3 kind of useless, because it used to be the safe wall splat move. So now that forward 1+2 wall splash, and it's also a counter hit, it's kind of just like, probably better off using this move 9 times out of 10, and forward 3 now kind of is purposeless. While running 3 also got a few adjustments. It's like, doesn't hit people, it hits people at a lower hitbox or whatever, and it also apparently had some type of effect where if you press down, you know, like the hit stun changed, but I'm not really 100% sure who even knew that existed, but it's fixed now, so that's cool. And now, finally, they snuck it at the very bottom, but it's the most important change on this list. While rising 2-1, now is a full counter hit combo on second hit if the opponent mashes. While standing 2 is one of Lars's top 5 moves without question. I've given guides on how to use this move. I'll post a link in the description. This move is god tier. It's always been good on multiple levels. It evades highs, it tracks, it has 2 different transitions, it has a follow-up, and now the follow-up is a counter hit launcher. If you're not using this move as a Lars player, you're not using Lars correctly. While standing 2-1 is your best friend. Best part about it is they didn't even nerf it. They didn't even take away any of its high evasion, and they didn't even take any away of its tracking. They didn't even mess with its minus frames on block. It's still minus 12. Barely anyone can get a chunky punish on it. This move, this move is a problem. Use it, my friends. Use it, my Lars players, and dominate in Season 4. Thank you for watching the video. Like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe for more Tekken content from yours truly. Thank you once again, and Undefeatable King signing out.